Firstly, we're wired to be loved by mum, to be seen by mother. There's an equation I write in the mother-daughter puzzle: being heard and being understood equals feeling loved. And of course, you want mum to see you, to understand you, to be there with you. It is so hard. I mean, I myself, I never really had mum standing either behind me or next to me. And it is so hard to then always be standing on your own.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. If I could snap my fingers and you would suddenly have a warm, supportive, loving relationship with your mother, would you have me do it? Now, some of you are saying, what? That's what my relationship with my mom's already like. And some of you are saying, well, our relationship is complicated, but it's not that bad. And still others of you are saying, no way. I don't want to get that close to my mom. We're grown women. We should have our relationships with our mothers sorted by now, right? But that's not how it works. Time is supposed to heal all wounds, but sometimes it doesn't. And that's why I wanted to talk to a mother-daughter expert about what to do about mom. What if we still don't get along with our mothers? Just how responsible are we for making mom happy? And is it bad if we still need our moms after all these years? Rosjke Hasseldine is one of the few therapists in North America and the world who specializes in mother-daughter relationships. She's the author of The Mother-Daughter Puzzle and The Silent Female Scream, and director of Mother-Daughter Coaching International. She's spoken about her work to Canadian TV and the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York City. She blogs for the American Counseling Association and on Medium, and she teaches therapists and coaches how to work with mothers and daughters. Welcome, Rosjke.
Well, thank you, Amy. I so appreciate you inviting me and talking about this so important subject.
So I also want to thank you because I feel like this topic is so important, because the very first question that I think so many of us daughters have, is it weird to struggle with your relationship with your mom?
Absolutely not, actually. Firstly, it's epidemic. Mother-daughter relationship issues, conflict, disagreements is epidemic around the world. And the reason for that is actually mothers and daughters are set up to fight. There are dynamics within society, and particularly if we look at how patriarchy and sexism emotionally affect women, and how we see ourselves and how we relate in our relationships. That is the ground. It's in a sense the soup in which we live and we swim and we relate in. So it will impact how particularly mothers and daughters relate. What I say to my clients is, when you look at a mother-daughter relationship, you see, and the dynamics between them, you see a window into how women are treated within their family, and particularly generationally family, within their culture and society. So no, you're in great company, I'm afraid, actually.
So what I love about that, and what I love about your work, is that we're not blaming mothers and we're not blaming daughters. This doesn't have to do with incompatible personalities.
Nope.
It doesn't have to do with somebody's, it doesn't have to do with anything personal. It's a lot bigger than that. And I want to get into that in just a bit. But first of all, you had your own issues with your mother. And so this is how you came to this work, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. So I've been working with clients for well over 20 years. But back when I was a teenager, in my early 20s, I really struggled with my relationship with my mom. My mother, I was expected to, my mother was expected to be my mother's emotional helpmate. And I was the oldest. Like, a lot of that often lands on the eldest daughter. And I knew I couldn't do it. And so when my daughter was born, I was 26 when she was born, I had this epiphany, and I write about that in The Silent Female Scream. I had this epiphany that I realized I needed to understand my relationship with my mum so that I could change harmful dynamics that were in our relationship, and I didn't repeat them with my daughter. So I started exploring what was around, and I'm from New Zealand, so I was in New Zealand at the time, and it really wasn't a lot. It was my mother, myself. There was only a few books around at the time, and I just got bitten by it. I just became so passionate. I knew then that this is what I was expected to do, called to do. This is why I have the mother I have.
What I love about that is that feeling of having disappointed your mother because you weren't the daughter she wanted is so endemic. And one of the problems is we often blame ourselves for that. Like every Mother's Day, right? We have all these advertisements and movies glorifying motherhood. And if we have a bad relationship with our mom, we feel like it's our fault. It's the responsibility of the daughter to be what the mother wanted. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And yes, daughters, I've had a number of people, including a minister of a church, say, don't you feel guilty that your mom is not speaking to you? And it was like, so you're right, it's endemic, that message that a daughter is supposed to make mum happy. No, mum is supposed to make mum happy, and daughter is supposed to make herself happy. We're not responsible for each other's happiness, because quite frankly, that is one of the key dynamics that makes the whole thing. We get in a fight over, what we each need from each other. And that's where emotional manipulation comes in. So, no, we are not responsible for mum's happiness at all. And if I can just also say generation, if you think about it, our mothers weren't taught to know what she needed, weren't taught to think that she was responsible, so therefore it lands on the daughter. So this is a generational pattern that really needs to be ended, so that we don't continue it to the next daughter's generation and the next one and the next one.
So when daughters are little, it's really common for kids to feel responsible for their parents' happiness because the kid does something wrong, mom or dad gets mad, the kid does something right, mom or dad gets happy. So the kid suddenly thinks, wow, I've got all this power to affect my parents' moods. But then we grow up and we become adults, and yet still we fight. So why are we still fighting with our moms, even though we don't even live together anymore?
Well, I think in terms of like when a daughter's young, and including with a son, we need to make mum happy, because actually it is a survival strategy. Because we need a happy mum who's going to meet our needs. It's not a conscious decision. It's that this is an unconscious survival strategy. So there's method to it, and it's survival. But why we're still fighting as adult daughters and moms is that generally I find, and this I think is universal, when women's needs are not met, or women don't know how to meet their needs, they fight over whose needs get met in the relationship. It's one or the other, not both, because we don't have a concept that all women's needs can be met. And the same with emotional support. When women are not emotionally supported within the family, it becomes we fight over who gets the emotional support in the relationship. It's mum or the daughter, not both. So we manipulate each other, we blame, we feel guilty, because that's fundamentally what we're fighting about. And the third thing is gender roles, restrictive gender roles that limit our freedom, limit our choice, limit our power. So we then, mothers and daughters, are set up to fight over their limited choices, their limited power. And mothers are also set down, if a daughter is not behaving according to what the family prescribes as a good mother, good wife, good daughter, good whatever, woman, who's at fault, who gets blamed? Mom, she's not socializing the daughter well enough. So the more patriarchal.
I just want to say, I read the mother-daughter puzzle, and it blew my mind, because one of the things you say that is so powerful is that when we look at our mothers and their mothers, we need to look at, did their partners, their husbands, fulfill their emotional needs? And oftentimes what we see is that our mothers and grandmothers ended up being in the culture. I love this. The culture of female service. Their whole role was to fulfill their spouse's needs, and then whatever's left went to the children, but nobody ever asked about them.
Yes. See, that's where patriarchy causes conflict between mothers and daughters. That's one of the huge areas. Because, if you look at our mothers and our grandmothers' generation, it was like a language was missing. What do you need? What do you feel? How can I support you? It's just not a language that they knew even existed. Who does that land on? The daughter, usually the eldest daughter, is then to listen for and fulfill mum's needs. But while she's doing that, she's not listening for her own. Hence,
and I want to say one more thing that blew my mind. You write in your book that the anger we feel towards our mothers is often displaced anger towards our fathers for not being there for us as well, because I loved this. It's safe to get mad at mom.
Yeah, mum's not going to walk away. Well, most mums don't walk away. Yeah, she's a safe person, because if dad's not available, if you're going to be angry with him, you can't be sure he's going to be more available to you. Chances are he may not be, but mum's available. So it all lands on mum. And I think it's really important for mums and daughters to realize that, actually.
And another thing that is really powerful about your work is that you look at it as multi-generational. So this is not just between you and your mom. This is between you, your mom, your grandma, and your own daughter, and as far back as you can go. And so sometimes we think that, we are often told actually that as adults, we've given up our right to criticize our parents, because by this time in our life, we are making our own choices and we can't blame our parents for anything. And so what does it mean then if we are still feeling hurt by our mother's behavior?
Yeah, I think, you see, hurtful behavior is still hurtful behavior. So if the hurtful behavior, so there's two things. I mean, on the one hand, we could be triggered by stuff in the past that we do need to heal within ourselves, so we're less triggered. But on the other hand, if mum is being controlling, manipulative, critical, emotionally distant, doing, hurtful behavior in the present, hurt is hurt. So saying that daughters just have to tolerate that is saying, you have to tolerate an abusive relationship. Normal rules still apply here. And I think there is a cultural or societal expectation that we just, mothers and daughters have to put up with bad behavior from each other. No, we don't. If we don't put up with it in another relationship, we should not put up with it from our mum or from our daughter. So, so we need boundaries. We need to say no. We need to claim the power to say, I'm not going to put up with this.
So there's one spanner in the works. So as you grow older, a lot of women aren't just looking after their husbands and kids, but they're looking after their own parents, because their own parents have health issues. And there's often this perception that the roles are swapping now. Your mom took care of you, and now it's your responsibility to look after her. But she's so old at that stage that you can't expect her to change. You have to accommodate her. So that's the big question. As grown children, how much do we owe to our mothers?
Well, this is a big question. So let's unpack that. Firstly, I want to say daughters, because we are wired for connection, we want to look after mum. That's the first thing. So not to sort of feel bad about that, because we want to look after mum, because we've got internal wiring that wants that. Secondly, though, it's cultural female service. Again, I think that you mentioned. The pattern of women or mothers or daughters giving up their boundaries, their focus on themselves, their right to their own goals, their right to their own life has to, so that they then have to look after their husbands, children, elderly moms, whatever, needs to change. Because it is a generational pattern then. And what can happen then is that if mom gave up her life to look after everybody. So then, and that's what I call a payback mom. Then she expects the daughter then to follow her in her shoes and do exactly the same thing. And actually, no, the daughter should not. And often this sort of caregiving of elderly parents and mostly of anybody that needs care in a family falls on daughters. And I think brothers need to step up to the plate here. I tell my clients, invoice them, invoice your brother or sibling for the time that you spent and start making them realize how much time you're spending here. There needs to be some much more clear boundaries in terms of what you can do and what you can't do. And you have the right to set that boundary where you need to set it, so that you don't then become another payback mother when you're elderly and you want, it's like the payback is about everything I never got, I am now going to get from you. And so, which is attention, love, affection. And that usually, that can often kick in at about 60, 65, 70, but you're talking about a very elderly mom. So there are very real needs there, but it doesn't mean to say the daughter has to do it all.
So let's flip that then. So we're grown up now, right? We're fulfilling all of our own needs. Do our mothers still owe us anything as daughters? This is one of the hard things to admit for so many adult daughters, that they still want their mother's attention and approval. And that, so there's two things to that. Firstly, we're wired to be loved by mum, to be seen by mother. There's an equation I write in the mother-daughter puzzle: being heard and being understood equals feeling loved. And of course, you want mum to see you, to understand you, to be there with you. It is so hard. I mean, I myself, I never really had mum standing either behind me or next to me. And it is so hard to then always be standing on your own. So that's absolutely, that is human. The other thing though is sometimes daughters feel like, and they can be, that mum then should be doing all the babysitting or all the, and actually the answer is no, because mum has a life too. Now, if she wants to, that's fine. But if the expectation that mum should be all available is no, she doesn't, because mum has a life. I love that. Again, it's going back to that culture of female service. We expect the women in our family at whatever age to serve, and they don't have to.
Yeah.
So here's the big question. How can we, now that we understand all this and we understand that this is so much bigger than just us and our moms, how can we start making those relationships better?
I think for me, actually, the exercise that I write in the mother-daughter puzzle, the mapping your mother-daughter history, is, I think, really key. And because what it does is it helps you understand your mum's life, like who she is, why she is the way she is. And more importantly, so it's not just the life stories, but the emotional reality in which she lives and has lived. Was she heard, or was she silenced? Was she supported, or was she neglected? What gender roles limited her choices and power? So understanding mum, I call it in the training I do, seeing mum with soft eyes. So you see her as in the context of her life, as and a product of the society and the family that she lives in and lived in. And therefore, we sort of, in a sense, can embrace the mum we have rather than wanting a mum we don't, than trying to get her to be the mum that she isn't. So it's, understanding her for who she is and why she is the way. Doesn't mean to say we have to put up with bad behaviour or manipulative behaviour, but still seeing her with soft eyes, with empathy.
Yeah. And for those of you watching, there is that amazing exercise in Rosjke's book, The Mother-Daughter Puzzle. And there is a lot more information on Rosjke's website. And if you're a therapist or a coach and you want to work with mothers and daughters, there is information there for you. And we've got a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/mothers. That's yourbrilliance.org/mothers. Rosjke, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for talking about this, highlighting this. So really, really appreciate it.
And I wondered if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
Claim your needs, I would say. Every morning, this is an exercise I give most of my clients. So every morning, wake up and think, what do I need today? And yeah, it might be I need to go for a walk, I need a massage, but when you start going deeper and thinking, actually, I needed that person yesterday to listen to me. That person did not listen to me. Then you're getting somewhere. You're starting to see that actually, I was a bit invisible and that I was dismissed. No, not okay. I'm going to go back to that. Or next time this happened, I'm going to say that. So, start tuning into what you need emotionally in your relationships. If you do that, it's like a muscle. You go to the gym and you find out you've got muscles you've never used for a long time. It's that. And I think this muscle hasn't been used generationally, and we're only recognizing that it even exists today. So, yeah. Think about that each morning with your breakfast.
And I love that it's think about your needs that day, not necessarily fulfilling everyone else's.
Exactly. And if you go to that, pull yourself back and say, no, what do I need?
Yes. And then you're going to be passing that down to future generations.
Exactly. And you will be giving more space in your relationship for other people to say it, for their needs. We're not going to be fighting over unmet needs.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rosjke. And thank you out there for watching. If you had any insights during this interview or any aha moments like I did, let us know in the comments. And if you want more interviews like these, make sure to subscribe to Your Brilliance TV and then come over to check us out at yourbrilliance.com, where you can find tons more tips and insights on how to live your most brilliant life. See you next time.